Okay, in this one here, we're going to be dividing integers. So we'll develop the rules for division of integers just as we did earlier for multiplication of integers likewise, right? So our first one will be to divide two integers. Let's take them little piece by piece, okay? And don't try work out everything if you're not so sure of. So we're gonna divide two integers at a time. So let's put it. We have here 10 divided by 5. That gives us 2. We know that for a fact. 10 divided by 5 gives us 2. Why? Because 5 times 2 equals 10. That's why. We know that. Now, if we have 25 divided by 5, that gives us 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. We know that also. We can use the relationship between multiplication and division to help develop rules for dividing integers. Okay, these were all positive. There are 4 cases to consider. Alright, so let's look at the 4 cases which we will be considering. Case 1, a positive integer divided by a positive integer. That's one case. All right, case 2 will have a negative integer divided by a negative integer. That will be case 2. Okay, case 3 will be a positive integer divided by a negative integer. Case 4, okay, case 4 now is going to be a negative integer divided by a positive integer. Those are the 4 cases which we will be looking at. Okay, so then let's go and start to work with some of them. Well, here we've already done a positive integer divided by a positive. We got a positive, so we know that. So from experience, we know that the result is positive because a positive divided by a positive gives us positive. Case 2 now, a negative integer divided by a negative integer. As an example, we'll be considering now, as an example for case 2, consider case 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 4, that gives us 2. Okay, you can find these two. How? By examining the relationship between multiplication statements. Because remember what we said here before, right? Because this value times this value gives us the top value. You can do that. So then, if we did not know that negative 8 divided by a negative 4 gives us a positive 2, then this is what you would need to do. Recall that this number, negative 4, times another number which we would not know would give us negative 8. And in that case, that would be 2. Alright, so this is how you would work it again. Let's go back on next way and see it. This example illustrates the quotient of two integers. That's the next way we can put it in mathematical terms. Quotient simply means division, right, of two integers. And in this case, there are two negative integers. So the quotient of two negative integers is positive. So let it summarize here. Quotient of two negatives is positive. In summary, case 3 now. A positive integer divided by a negative integer. So case 3, we have here a positive integer 20 divided by a negative integer 5. From here we can see that is the quotient. So quotient of a positive and a negative integer, the quotient of a positive and negative integer is negative. So we have negative 20 divided by negative 5, that gives us negative 4. Okay, and case 4 now gives us that if we have a negative divided by a positive, so let's put this one here, negative 20 divided by positive 5, that gives us negative 4. Again, quotient of a negative and a positive integer is negative. Okay, so from here we can see dividing two integers. In summary, let's put it, dividing two integers. When we divide two integers, this is what we got. Alright, so remember, we have already done absolute values. We can say to divide two integers, divide their absolute values. That's the key part. And the reason why that's the key part, because you will divide their absolute values regardless of their sign. Just remember, case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. A negative divided by a negative is positive. A positive divided by a positive is positive. Two different signs will give us negative. So here now we have the quotient of two integers that have the same sign, and this is same sign could be negative and negative, positive and positive. Okay, like signs is positive. Okay, it is positive. The quotient of two integers that have the same or like signs is positive. 2. The quotient of two integers that have different, or what you call unlike signs, is negative. Okay, so that's for division. So let's go now some examples. Example: of example, we have a negative 12 over 6. Our strategy here is to use the rules for dividing two integers that have different or unlike signs. We know that when they have unlike signs and it's division, the result will be negative. Key point number 1. 2. Each division involves a negative and a positive integer in this case. So what do? We find the absolute value of negative 12 and that of 6. So absolute value of negative 12 is 12 and the absolute value of 6 is 6. So now we simply divide 12 divided by 6 gives us 2, and because they are different signs we put it negative. Easy as that. If you're given the problem differently stated, for example, it may look different, it's the same. If you're given 20 divided by negative 4, again this means division, the line here means division. We do the same thing. Absolute value of 20 is 20. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Divide those two numbers, we end up with 5. Because they are two different signs, it's negative. Okay? So that's how we're going to work these problems here. So they should not be difficult for us to work out. And then we can divide also quotients of like signs. So these were different signs. Now, another example. So we're going to keep them separated so you can see the difference. If we are dividing, let's use negative 12. Negative 12 divided by negative 6. We know that when we have two negatives, the result will be positive. So in other words, our strategy here is to use the rule for dividing two integers that have the same or like signs, okay, which the result will be positive. In this case, we are asked to find the quotient of two negative integers in this case also. So we find the absolute value of 12, which is 12, and the absolute value of negative 6, which is 6. Divide those two numbers, we end up with 2. That's our solution. Let's try our next problem. Maybe given the problem, negative 36 divided by negative 4. This means division, so we end up with positive 9. Alright? So that's how we work with these problems here. Now, we're going to go and identify division of 0 by the division of 0. So we have here identify division of 0 and division by 0. Two different things. Division of 0 and division by 0. There are two different scenarios. So to review this concept of division of 0, we will consider an example. 0 over 5. That gives us 0 here. 0 divided by negative 5. That still gives us 0. How is this? Well, we know from multiplication that the only way we can get 5 times a number to give us 0, it is only when this number is 0. So only when one of the numbers which is being multiplied is 0, we end up with is 0. Likewise here. So in other words, regardless of their sign, a 0 divided by any integer, it will always give us 0. That's the main point here. Okay? Now, we have the next scenario. When we have 5 divided by 0, that is, then what? This is unknown. This is undefined. Let's explain it. Does not have an answer, and we say that 5 divided by 0 is undefined. This example illustrates that the quotient of any non-zero integer divided by 0 is undefined. So put it here also as to negative 5 divided by 0 equals undefined. This concept here is summarized as to say the quotient of any non-zero integer divided by 0 is undefined. So the quotient of any non-zero integer divided by 0 is undefined, regardless if it's positive or negative. So that's the key point there.